Now see, ng on changes before ng on init, right, and after changing input properties of your component. That is the first thing. Ng on init only once. Ng do check, right, detects and act upon the changes that Angular can't detect on its own. So ng do check is that function if you have executed little bit a jQuery call, and from that jQuery you are going to update the component. So if there is a something which execute outside the Angular context and still you want to detect the changes, right, and still you want to detect the changes, at that time this ng do check function would be getting called forcefully, right. So there is one, you have written little bit jQuery or a JS DOM manipulation, and from that DOM manipulation if you want to update the content, this function will help you a lot, right. See, called during every change detection run, immediately called after the ng on changes and ng on init, immediately getting called after ng on changes and ng on init. Okay, now what I'll do is that let me write log everywhere. Here I can say lg, one function, then msg here, and here I can say string, right, say log, and here I can say msg. I want to print this msg as it is, right. So everywhere what I will do is that let me call lg function and pass msg, or here I can say ng on destroy, here I can say ng on destroy, this dot this, then this dot, let me just write the methods, and here this dot ng after init, this over here, right, same thing. So you would be getting to know which function is getting called at the what time of life cycle here. Then let me copy this here, then let me copy this ng on init like this, and here you can have ng on changes something like this. Okay, so you have component, this component has been loaded. Now inspect the elements, and in the console let me refresh it. See, ng on init has been called, ng do check has been called, ng after content init has been called, ng after content check has been called, ng after view init has been called, and ng after view checked. So this life cycle is going to be called at the first shot, this much. So this is the life cycle which is going to be called at the first shot. Now ng on changes, so something about the ng on changes. So I would be having one input over here, so let me import the input, and here I can say at input, and here you can say life is the variable of type string, life is the variable of type string, and it is an input variable, right. It is nothing but what? Input variable. At input life this. Okay, so in the this component we have written something like this, right. So this component we have written something like this. So here I can say life and input, life and input, right. So here you can say one what you can say, one variable, say dt means the date time, right? And I would be having one button inside this. I would be having one button here. Let me have input type is equals to button, name wouldn't be anything, and here you can say dt is equals to, right, dt is equals to new date dot toString. I would be assigning simply new date over here. So dt is equals to new date dot toString. So sorry, not value. So value would be date, and on the click, right, on the click I would need dt is equals to new date dot toString. New date dot toString. On the click I am just changing the variable, right? On the click I am just changing variable, right? Now if you can see here, okay, because of these spaces it is not allowing us to do that thing. So in the lifecycle component, right, instead of having this string I can have the boolean, right? Type of the variable is the boolean, and here, right, here on the click I can say dt is equals to not dt, kind of, it's a boolean. So life variable is a boolean, right? And on the clicking just changing this. Now if you inspect it, if you go to the console and the logging, right, and if I click the date, can you see lifecycle is getting called? See, if I'm clicking the date, ng on changes is getting called, ng do check is getting called, ng after content check is getting called, and ng after view init is getting called. So let me clear it, and at the first time if you check, go to the logging, at the very first time, right, at the very first time ng on changes has been called, then ng on init has been called, ng do check has been called, ng after content init, ng after content checked, after view init, view check. Now these four methods are that methods. Do you remember we have seen at view child and at content child, right? Content projection means to the component you are injecting some content. To the component you are injecting some content. At that time on content init and on content checked, these two methods are going to be called, right? On view init and on view checked, these methods are going to be called when your markup for that particular component has been loaded. Markup, I am saying not content, markup of the component or template of the component has been created and has been loaded. At that time these two methods are going to be get called. And ng do check is the symbol of your change detection has been completed. If your change detection has been completed, this method would be getting called for sure, right? If there is a change detection, this method is going to be called through forever, right? Now if I say click, my input properties are getting changed, right? My input properties are getting changed. If I click done, see ng on changes, fine. If my input of the component is going to be getting changed, ng on changes, do check, content checked, and view checked. See, no init methods are there because content and view has been already loaded, so you don't need to load them once again, right? So this is the call where it is going to be get loaded, right? Now, what I'm going to do, see, ng star ng if is equals to, right, dt. See what I'm doing, star ng if is equals to dt. What I'm doing, star ng if is equals to dt. Now you will find another callback is getting called over here. See, now go to the logging, and here you will find now component has been added. The component has been added. These many methods are going to be called. Now I am going to remove the component by means of the value of dt, and here you will see ng destroy has been called, because component has been completely removed from the DOM. At that time ng destroy is going to be called. So if you want to fire some event whenever your component has been removed from the DOM, override the ng on destroy method. Now see, if I load the component, you will find whatever the things that are going to be added right at the load time. See, ng on changes, ng on init, ng do check, after content init, after content checked, after view init, after view checked. If I remove that, view destroy is going to be called, and ng on changes we have already seen. On the click of the date, right, if you are changing input parameter of the component, that what you can say ng on changes is going to be called. So every method has a significance when that is going to be called. So ng after content init, ng after content checked are related to the content projection. You are injecting some content to the component, at that time that method will come into the picture. ng view init, ng view checked are related to the template loading, right? Whenever template loading initialization and the change detection will complete, that ng view init and view checked methods will be getting called. Checked methods are related to the change detection. ng do check, content checked, and your view checked are related to the change detection. Remember that, right? Okay, so this is little bit about what you can say your Angular component lifecycle, right? Little topic was remaining that we have covered.